spring, they let the Avs get good again. They let them get good. They let him get a goaltender. They let him get relatively healthy, although we'll get to the Val Nichushkin stuff in just a couple of minutes. But don't look now. The Colorado Avalanche are the hottest team in hockey, and they take down the best team in the West in Connor Hellebuyck in the Winnipeg Jets last night. 5-2 with 2 empty netters. Mikko Rantanen extends his point streak to 11 straight games. The power play looked better with Jonathan Drouin out there alongside Rantanen, McCarr, and Nathan McKinnon. It looked like the puck was moving a little bit better. And even though the second period got a little squirrely, it never got away from him. And Mackenzie Blackwood stood tall against a really tough Winnipeg Jets attack.
Well, Happy New Year's, everybody.
Hey.
Hope everyone was good last night. It's New Year's Eve. Here we are, New Year's morning. Makes more sense probably to do a show New Year's morning. I'm surprised. Well, I shouldn't say I'm surprised, but maybe just a little disappointed. But I guess it makes sense that the Jets don't throw Hellebuyck in net last night. They throw Eric Comrie in net. The Jets had played a couple games while the Avs were just sitting at home waiting for Winnipeg to come to town. Hellebuyck had started their last 4 games, including a game on Saturday nights when the Avs were not playing. They last played on Friday.
He played on New Year's on the 30th as well.
Yeah, and then last night. So at home against Nashville. Now, okay, they throw Hellebuyck out there against the weaker opponent. My God, Nashville remains in a bad way. They just lost last night to a Kirill Kaprizov-less Wild team. That team's awful, but I guess I'll get your sure 2 points if you're Winnipeg. Put Hellebuyck out there against Nashville. Don't play him the next night, which was the second night of a back-to-back for Winnipeg in Colorado. Would have loved to see Blackwood versus Hellebuyck. I mean, that's the thing, that Hellebuyck is the best goaltender in the NHL. He has taken that mantle. I mean, I'll still throw out Vasilevsky in there. I know Shesterkin just got paid, but I don't put him in that truly top tier. It's probably Hellebuyck right now, but I would have loved to see Hellebuyck versus Blackwood. Instead, we got Comrie versus Blackwood. Eric Comrie made some good saves in this game. I mean, he saves 33 shots on 36 against. He made some big ones. He kind of keeps Winnipeg in that game because that was all Colorado. I mean, the 2 goals on Blackwood to me were just bad bounces, ones that were just kind of fluky after Colorado is dominating the play, and then bam, weird bounce, Winnipeg scores. They keep tying this game up. Ultimately, the better team wins. Man, this team is so deep that Casey Middlestat was listed as the 4C, was your 4th line set. And we knew this was going to happen, Raj, now that Jonathan Drouin is back, there was going to be an odd man out. Now, with Nichushkin exiting, we don't know for how long, Middlestat will go back to the top 6. You have 7 top 6 skaters when everyone's healthy. One of them has to be an odd man out, save for mixing and matching. Last night, at least as far as the initial lineups went, Casey Middlestat was that odd man out. Lo and behold, though, he has his best game in a month, and is the first star last night as the Avs get the win.
Middlestat plays 14 minutes and 51 seconds. As your second line center, you're going to want that to go a little bit north. But if you end up splitting that, look at the centerman minutes outside of Nathan McKinnon last night. You can throw Juuso Parssinen in there, I suppose, but he's still being learned by the organization. But your other 3 centers in Parker Kelly, or Casey Middlestat, and Ross Colton, they essentially played the same amount of time last night. And that could be a recipe for success, right? Like blending those bottom 9 players as much as you possibly can, and simply playing the hot hand as your second center on a given day. I thought it was a good idea from Bednar to kind of mix it up. Maybe it was a little bit of a message sent to Middlestat because he had not been getting the production that he needs out of 37. I thought it was a great tip. You make a really good point on Eric Comrie having a pretty good game last night. Like everything outside of the Devon Taves goal, right? Like what are the other 2 goals that go in when Winnipeg has a goalie in net? They're tips. They're one where Stanley cross-checks Lehkonen in the back, and he somehow gets a blade on it, and it goes by. I can't put that on the goalie. And then Middlestad's tip was awesome. What a beautiful play.
Oh, they were both awesome. I thought both Lekkonen's and Middlestats were tremendous plays.
Yeah, and so I can't put the loss for Winnipeg on Eric Comrie. Like, Comrie was fine. You just made the point. The second period was the only one that got a little squirrely for the Avs. The third was dominant. They suppressed chances better than I thought they had all season long in the third period. And it's why I opened up the show the way I did. You let them get good again, and now you're screwed. The rest of the league, you let this team get good. You let the team get relatively healthy. You gave them goaltending, and as a result, you gave a team that had been walking into this year still with a whole bunch of swagger and confidence, but not nearly as much as they had had 2 years prior. If I'm correct, and I'm taking this off of NHL media, the Avs now have 4 straight seasons of 50 or more, or 4 straight years, rather, calendar years of 50 or more regular season wins. 4 in a row. The only other teams to have done that in NHL history are Edmonton between 1983 and 86, when they were literally unbeatable, and Montreal when they did it between 1975 and 1978, which when, again, they were literally unbeatable. You let this team get swagger again, and the rest of the league is likely, honestly, they're likely shaking a little bit.
Josh Manson is back. He had his best game of the season.
He did. He got screwed on that backdoor goal, too. It was a bad change.
Oh, yeah, that goal, when I talk about the 2 goals that Blackwood allows, the first one, the Rasmus Kapari goal on the line change, you mentioned him. I believe it was the newest Av, Juuso Parssinen, who tries to send a puck down but doesn't get it deep enough. I thought Mark Mosher was great calling this last night. And that extra 15 feet on a subsequent line change that, Parssinen can't put that puck deep enough. Now all of a sudden Winnipeg can get a little quick rush the other way. That was just a fluke play. That's just your newest fourth liner not executing 100% properly, and it leads to that cross-ice goal that beats Blackwood. It's unbeatable. Josh Manson, his 2 assists, the tips from Lehkonen and Middlestat, and specifically the second one, the no-look pass into the slot. Now, the first one, Lehkonen, that's just a great, matrix little, let me just contort my body in the air to tip this thing home. Great play by Lehkonen. And then the second one, the no-look pass, looking slap shot, but then it's a pass into the slot, and then it's just a great job by Middlestat to win the position in that area and tip it in. So Josh Manson, he's back. He has his best game of the season. The Avs now are on a 5-game winning streak. And what have I said all season long? That when this team gets healthy, they're probably going to rip off multiple 5+ game winning streaks. And at the very end of this calendar year, this portion of this season, they get their first. And we still have 3.5 months left to play. They should, especially now with the goaltending room as shored up as it has been, and they're as healthy as they have been. They're so healthy. They were so healthy last night again that Middlestat was 4C. What happens when Miles Wood gets back? We hope Nichushkin is back as soon as possible. But now, if my prediction is going to hold true, there's one 5-game win streak. We'll see how long this one continues. We'll see how long beyond 5 this one continues. They have Buffalo tomorrow night. And Buffalo's playing a little better, but my gosh, they have not had a good season. So the multiple 5-game win streak thing is playing out. It's going to play out. As long as this team stays healthy, and now with the goaltending it has, like Winnipeg last night, man, they're the best team in the West. And Comrie gave them a performance akin to Hellebuck. So you can't even really look at goaltending. And they got owned. They got outplayed. Now they're on the road, but that is a wake-up call that, hey, yeah, the Avs are sitting down there in third in the division. That's not really what it is. They are as good or better than Winnipeg and showed it last night.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like they're really that far back in the standings right now. And through 38 games played, 23-15-0. It's amazing that they are at 46 points at this point in the season with everything that happened, and they haven't gotten a single loser point this year. I think they're the only team in the NHL without a loser point. Yeah, that's correct. The only team in the National Hockey League that has not garnered a point by losing in either overtime or the shootout this year. But 46 points, they sit 4 points behind Minnesota. And remember a couple weeks ago when it was like, oh yeah, the Avs have played 4-5 more games than the rest of the Central Division. Well, they have a game in hand now on the Winnipeg Jets, and while Winnipeg sits up there at 55, you're now within shouting distance. Minnesota and Colorado have played the same amount of games. Dallas is still catching up with 36, but I still think they've kind of evened out. They are who I think everyone knew the Stars were, and that is a legit contender in the West. There are 3 legit contenders in the Central Division for a Western Championship, and that's Colorado, Dallas, and Winnipeg. I don't believe in Minnesota. I still think they outkicked their coverage at the beginning of the year, but the Avs are right where we expected them to. How much are you reading into last night's performance of the Avs were the better team on the ice simply because of the back-to-back?
Yeah, that's part of it. And Winnipeg's on the road. I get it, but we've seen this matchup. This is a rematch of the first round of the playoffs last year when the Avs had Georgiev. I mean, what does Winnipeg have this year that they didn't have last year that leads anyone to believe that if these two were to meet in the playoffs again, when now the Avs are better in net than they were last year? And Georgiev was good in that series, but I have all the confidence in the world in Blackwood right now. And that's another thing about this 5-game win streak that they're on. They have allowed no more than 2 goals in all of 5 of these wins. They're getting the goaltending now. And then, Thursday night, if it's Wedgwood, fine. Love it. We're overdue for a Wedgwood start. He's been very good. So the Avs have improved their goaltending. They have Nichushkin back. They had him in the Winnipeg series, but if they're healthy, they're as deep as they've been. Ross Colton's playing at a level that he wasn't last year. What does Winnipeg have? Cole Perfetti improving a little bit. They're the same team from last year. Like, that last night was what it should be. I don't care about second night of a back-to-back. I don't care about being on the road. That's a playoff preview right there if these two teams meet.
Yeah, it is a shame. It feels like that could be a Western Conference final, and you're not going to see that. You'll see it either in round 1 or in round 2 this year at the very latest. The fact that you don't get to see these divisional rivalries decide who wins a conference is something I think I'll never get over. I suppose I understand the logic of it. Like, you have to technically win your division in the playoffs to win your conference. And that's a ladder that I suppose I can understand, but it takes away some of the more intriguing matchups. Like, that team, those two teams would hate each other if they had the ability to play for something that big. Just nuts that you're not going to be able to watch it. It was a big win. Nichushkin does go out, doesn't return for the third period. It's classified as a lower body injury. He did get elbowed in the head by Stanley at one point, but Bednar said he's being evaluated for an LBI. We do not have any updates as of right now. Middlestat steps up, right? When Nichushkin goes out, Middlestat moves up from that bottom 6 and fills in and scores a big-time goal. That's the thing that, while they're deep, and you've gone into how deep the Avs are, you've also gone in show after show, rightfully so, talking about how important Nichushkin is. That's something that could derail the success.
Yeah, no, that definitely hurts. He has been so good that he's now playing on the top line instead of Mikko Rantanen. Now, I understand that, maybe it's just a spread it out type thing. They're very similar. They're different but similar players, so it's somewhat of a wash. But it's just a testament to how good Nichushkin is, really, that you can, put him up there and not, sweat at all that, Mikko's going down to line 2, Nichushkin's going up to line 1. It's a wash at best. I mean, hell, I think it's actually been an improvement. of late. It's funny. They were talking about Kyle Connor. Kyle Connor is the best player on the Jets last night on the altitude broadcast, and they're talking about how he's a $7 million cap hit and how he's one of the best bargains in the NHL. And when we were talking about underrated players like Val a few shows ago, I think Kyle Connor fits that bill as well. He goes -4 last night. He was a -4, was Kyle Connor. He's not Val. Val is a very special player who is truly, truly underrated. Now Mikko Rantanen played. I thought this was his best game in a hot second. I know he had a hat trick recently, but it felt like he had a chip on his shoulder last night. He was very active, was Mikko, with 5 shots on goal. He gets an empty netter, man. He loves those empty net goals, but he was active.
He is a little bit of an empty net merchant, isn't he?
He was active last night. It was the best I've seen him look in a few games. So, okay, if Nichushkin's going to be out fine, Mikko, all of a sudden now you're right back up on the top line. And fortunately, Drouin is back. That's huge because now you still have a true top 6. You can go Colton, Drouin, Middlestat on your second line. Hopefully Val is not out too long because, the Avs can continue to win games without him. But when you're talking about winning a cup, no, you need Val Nichushkin. So hopefully it's not too long.
You mentioned the empty net goal for Mikko Rantanen dating back to the 2022-2023 season. Mikko Rantanen leads the NHL in empty net goal scoring with 14. He loves himself an empty netter.
Man, and Nathan McKinnon loves to get him to him. Nate's so unselfish because so many times Mikko's like sitting on a hat trick and Nate's like, "Here you go, buddy." That wasn't the case last night. Yeah,
maybe that's something that that McFarland and Sakic can use in the contract negotiations and be like, yeah, are you really a 50-goal scorer? Are you really that guy? Which he is, but
thank you for throwing that stat out there. Look, no, he was good last night. He was good. I've been digging Val on that top line though. I wonder if the play he took an elbow to the head from Logan Stanley, but I wonder there was a play where I think Nate set him up for a one-timer, but there were 2 bodies on him, and Val couldn't really get a shot off. I wonder if that little tangle moment is where he hurt his leg or something like that. Man, he is taken some pucks to the body since he's come back, but he's remained healthy. I'm surprised, how clean it's been for him because, man, early in his first few games back, he was taking pucks to the face, pucks to the body, just some bad, weird bounces. Here, it finally catches up to him. It finally catches up to the Avs, too. Look, when they are 100% healthy, it's almost too much. It's too much. It's going to be too hard to keep everybody healthy. It is. Someone's just going to be hurt all season long. You just hope it's not season ending. And they also have the luxury, too, of playing it a little cautious now. If someone is a little banged up, I wonder if Manson was a little banged up before he got hurt and they just said, hey, let's shut it down for a little bit. Let's get you right. Even though maybe he could have played, I don't know. Because he came back and he looked as good as he's looked. It looked like the time off did him very well. They have a little bit of a luxury now where they can take it a little slow with Nichushkin now that Drouin's back, now that they're as deep as they are.
Fishing for Cards asks on YouTube if Val's injury is long-term and Landy isn't coming back by the time the March 7 deadline hits, is Mikko still safe at that trade deadline? I think a long-term Nichushkin injury, if that's what it is, and we don't know, so I'm not going to speculate until we hear something from the organization. I think if that were to be the case, it makes Mikko even more safe at the trade deadline, because if you're missing those 2 players and you're missing them, Rantanen's presence in the lineup becomes that more important. I also think he's safe regardless. I think they're going to get a deal done here. I think 12.5 is still a great number. I would even go to 13, but I'm also in the camp of hey, use the McKinnon soft cap within the team, get him to 12.5 at 8 years, and he'll end up signing it. I don't see this being a team that would trade Mikko Rantanen. You would not be able to get the value for Mikko at the trade deadline. So let's take it this way. Again, don't trade Mikko Rantanen. Don't fucking do it. Like you'd be dumb to do it unless his camp comes to you and goes, "We're not signing with you," and then you can trade him. But that hasn't happened. All indications are both sides want to get a deal done. They're just trying to get to the number, and they're probably fudging on $1 million, right? That's typically what these type of deals come down to. But let's take that thought process down the road. If you were to trade Mikko, you would not do it at a deadline because it unfortunately shrinks the amount of possibilities that you could get back in return. You have to worry about cap constraints because you don't have the entire year to plan that cap number out. You have to worry about teams that are not willing to trade certain players that you might want back in return to get the requisite value on a player who is a bona fide shoe-in Hall of Famer when he decides to hang them up. And that's what Mikko is. You would get the value in the offseason for this player, which, again, because he's a pending unrestricted free agent, you wouldn't be able to trade him in the offseason. You trade his rights, all of that coming back to saying Colorado's not trading him. It's not happening. This is not the Elias Pettersson and JT Miller issue in Vancouver, where both guys are looking at the organization and saying, I fucking hate that guy, trade him or I want to leave. Because that's what's happening with the Canucks. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, no, we brought up the idea of the Avs trading Mikko before the deadline a lot because, the others in NHL media had brought it up, including Biz and Ryan Whitney on Spit and Chicklets. They brought it up.
It's a fun conversation. Don't get me wrong.
Well, it makes hey, it's the old, you don't want to lose him for nothing. Should he walk? That being said, you're right. You wouldn't get the best deal you could get for him at the deadline because your suitor list, well, maybe there could be a team that could want the rights to him that's not a playoff team who's looking at next year or even 2 years from now. Then all of a sudden Mikko's not playing playoff hockey. That would be something. But the way I look at it, though, and even though, look, I have my concerns about whether or not they can get a deal done, I ultimately do think they will. I just have concerns. Is the Avs are a contender, and when you're a contender, you don't sell. You have to risk it. You would trade for a Mikko Rantanen. You would trade if you were a contender at the deadline. You would give up multiple assets to go get Mikko Rantanen. So you take the risk. Even if Mikko's a rental, that's what contenders do. They go get rentals. So if he were to walk for nothing in the offseason, you would miss out on possible draft capital and or young, promising prospects, one or multiple. But you could still, whatever money he signs for elsewhere is money you save and then you go spend elsewhere. Yeah, you would just miss out on that draft / prospect capital.
Right. If he were to end up walking in the offseason, the Avs would be the first team lining up to find like Mitch Marner, or they would be the first team lining up to try and sign Brad Marchand to a low average annual value, low term deal when he's in his late 30s and maybe leaving Boston because the situation there with the Bruins is probably not what Brad Marchand wants to end his career in, right? Like not being in the playoffs. He wants to compete. Again, Mel just asked how bad's the Val injury. We don't know. We're waiting for something for the organization. I've sent a couple of texts out and I haven't heard back from anyone. So I would assume that we're going to hear at some point later today what's going on with Val. My assumption is you're going to hear, well, it's day to day or it's week to week. That's going to be the company line when it comes to injuries, as it always has been for Bednar. And typically with the Avs, when you hear day to day, think week to week, and when you hear week to week, think month to month. We'll cross that bridge when it ends up.
Well, just anything but a knee, anything but an ACL, MCL. if it's a broken bone, we just saw Ross Colton come back in about a month
Yeah,
from that.
Ovi came back from a broken leg in 38 days.
Yeah, so
Rushing gas is real.
as long as I don't hear season ending, as long as I don't hear anything with the CL, I'll take it.
Dude, I can't wait when Ovi breaks this record and retires, and we get either a tell-all book or we get a documentary into this final season of him. Just I cannot wait to hear how in some way he got the Russian gas here into the NHL just to use in this final season, just to get him to the finish line. Combination of freaking Toradol and a amphetamine just making you feel like you're Superman.
Man, like, especially, when's the how long between drug test and see,
They
Val
go
is
get drug tested. Get out of here. Get real.
Ovi's not getting drug tested?
No way. No way. No
Val
way.
got drug tested. Does everyone get drug tested?
There is no way that they are drug testing Alexander Ovechkin. There's no shot. Could you imagine Bettman shooting himself in the foot that way? It's one of the greatest storylines in the history of the league, right? This guy coming in and breaking an unbreakable record. And he was one of the two guys that were supposed to save the league, him and Sidney Crosby. And they did it. Like they saved the National Hockey League when it needed them the most. And they both did exactly what they were meant to do, being generational prospects. Could you imagine? They go, well, this 40-year-old shouldn't be playing this well. This guy should be coming back from a broken leg this old, this quickly. And then they go, yeah, let's drug test the guy. No, they're going to, if anything's happening, and again, this is very tongue-in-cheek. If anything's happening, he's going to Bud Selig the crap out of this thing. And then maybe a few years down the road, we'll go, well, he was using some painkillers that maybe we weren't okay with.
Hey, speaking of Washington, though, and Ovi's he's back now, and the Caps are the best team in the East. The Caps are the best team in the East. And
would have thought it.
The worst team in the Metro, Washington's division, is the New York Rangers. They are the worst team in the Metro. They are the second worst team in the Eastern Conference. The worst team in the Eastern Conference is coming into Ball Arena tomorrow night. That's the Buffalo Sabres. Now, I think they're a little better than, like, when you just say worst team in the East. I don't view them as like an awful team. I think they should have been a little better than that, but they're not as good. They're young. The whole Bo Byram, Rasmus Dahlin seems to have plateaued a little bit after a promising season a couple years ago. Tage Thompson isn't scoring 6 goals like he used to. But man, with New York, they're borderline out of it. Like, they're borderline out of it. And so when you look at Washington as the best team in the East, Florida even has not been as good as they were last year. They're still good. And the Avs will see Florida on this homestand. I think it's the last game of this homestand.
Final game.
It is a week on Monday night. Dude, I'm telling you, the Rangers being as poor as they are, a team like Washington, who's a good team, don't get me wrong, but that's the team that's leading the East. It's just, to me, more evidence that Colorado, sitting at 46 points at 23-15, now on a 5-game win streak, is as dangerous as any team in the league.
They are. I think the rest of the league looks at Colorado the same way that they look at Florida in the East, and they go, yeah, that's a giant that I don't want to wake up. I don't want to mess with. And unfortunately, like, it was something that the rest of the league couldn't help but just sit by and watch happen, which was Mike Greer helping Chris McFarland out and going, hey, you need to fix your goaltending room. We'll take it. We'll take Georgie off your hands for a prospect and a mid-round pick. So the rest of the league kind of looks at it and goes, oh, crap. They're a sleeping giant, and I think the rest of the league knows exactly what's happening. They're getting healthy. They have goaltending for the first time. It's set up for the next 5 years at what could be the biggest contract steal in the NHL if Mackenzie Blackwood stays healthy. Like, he doesn't even have to play as well as he has in his 6 starts with the Avs. Right now, 5-1 in his 6 starts with, I believe, a save percentage of like 30 or something like that, which is the best in the NHL over that 7-game stretch. He doesn't even need to play that well. You could drop that save percentage by 20 to 25 points, and the Avs would still be this scary, right? They're not scoring as much as they did in 2022, but it's like a third of a goal a game drop from 2022 until now. And now you have competent net minding.
Yeah, I really think, man, that Blackwood's the best goalie they've had in this window. I really do, and that's a scary thing.
He's the best goaltender they've had since Semyon Varlamov.
I think so. I'd go Kemper as the next best, but I think Blackwood's above it. I really do.
Spring, did you get any chance to watch like Winter Classic, World Junior at all last night? Winter Classic, dude, it's lost everything for me. It's such a shame.
Well, it was a poor matchup. Now, look, Wrigley Field, good venue. I didn't get to watch much of it. And I get putting Connor Bedard out there, who, man, I thought he'd be based on how he looked in his rookie season, and he's been good this year, but I thought he'd even be a little bit better than he's shown this year. I get it. The kid's like 19, 20 years old, so I need to slow my roll here. But look, if that game was to be worthy of anything, Chicago gets boat race in that game, then Connor Bedard needed to be, ahead of his age, truly, and he's not quite. Shout out to Jim Montgomery. What he's done with the Blues has been excellent, but it's just a poor matchup. I get the idea of Bedard before the season starts, but it's just a poor matchup. What's the deal with this New Jersey LA game today?
It's the only game in the NHL.
Okay, it's in Staples Center. Nothing special here.
No, nothing crazy.
Or Crypto.com, excuse me.
It's not like it's always Staples Center at this point. It's not like it's an outdoor game, like a stadium series game or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of lost its juice to me, and maybe it was because it's such a bad matchup between two teams that aren't going to compete for the playoffs this year. Maybe it's because we've already seen these two teams play in Winter Classics against each other, or because we've seen Wrigley host one of these things. I think the allure of iconic baseball / football venue has gone away. Like, it was really cool the first time that you saw games at Fenway and at Wrigley and at the Big House in Michigan. But the allure of that being the selling point of the Winter Classic has gone away for me. I think they need to find a different way for a made-for-TV event, right? Because what the Winter Classic has turned into now is a made-for-gate event. They make a ton of money on that in-state. Like, they get a bunch of people there. It's a whole weekend around it, and it's a really fun place to be. Like, you and I have been to Stadium Series games, and we've seen how exciting it is to be at that venue. Air Force parking and arrival and departure nightmare or not, it's a fun place to be. It's made for the people that are there now. But if you want this to be a true sit down and watch it on TV event, all they have to do is go back to what they did during COVID at Lake Tahoe. That's the way to do it. You have to find stunning backdrops, places that you wouldn't typically find a rink. And if you want to get a few thousand people there, you build a 5,000 to 7,000 stadium seating rink, if you can. And there's a lot of red tape that goes up, and you sell those tickets for astronomical prices if you need to make your gate nut. But if you don't, and you don't need fans there, and you just want to make it for a made-for-TV event, do the Lake Louise thing in Alberta. Do the thing where you're playing on Lake Tahoe once again. Put up a sheet on the Washington Mall and have Sid and Ovi go at it next year when they're 40 and 41. That's the way that they need to do it.
Yeah, no, the key is the backdrop. That's the key. And these Winter Classic games, like, yeah, they're in Wrigley, but how much of, like, the ivy wall am I really seeing? That's what I want to see, The
ivy's dead at this point of the year.
Yeah. So I would trim it down. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Like the Lake Tahoe, like where, like, directly above the glass, you see like a lake. Like, that makes it unique and different. Like the movie Mystery Alaska. They need to go play.
What a movie.
They need to go play at that rink. A unique, cool, outdoor, smaller setting. I think that's actually the key. sometimes simpler, sometimes less is more than having. And I understand the desire to sell tickets, right? You can sell more tickets at a baseball stadium than you can, at a little Lake Tahoe setup. But if you want to get ratings, if you want a better TV product, that's what you should do. Yeah, it's played. I don't care about seeing. I'm struggling to think of a unique stadium that I'm like, man, I want to, or any like that when any of the big four leagues play in, that I'm like, oh, I'd love to see something there. I can't think of it. And I also think the matchup is key too, man. You got to have a fresh new matchup. You got to have something good. I'm sick of no more Rangers Bruins, no more freaking, give me something a little different, please. There's got to be something.
Yeah, they've played at every venue, right? You make a good point. They've done it. They had to reuse Wrigley. There's not another iconic venue that like I'm sitting here saying I must see a hockey game played in. It has lost the allure on television for me. And it's a shame because I'm a guy that like it's impossible for me to not watch the sport, and I found it hard to tune into that game. Like it was much easier for me to watch USA and Canada last night on two different screens because USA and Canada in the World Juniors last night was basically at the same time as Avs and Jets. It's easier for me to watch that game and get invested in a preliminary round World Junior game than it was for a Winter Classic, and that's saying something.
Put it on a beach. I know that like with the Lake, remember the Lake Tahoe game, they had trouble like keeping the ice frozen, but man, it's literally 2025 now. Figure it out. Figure out the technology where I can get a hockey game in fucking paradise. I want it in paradise.
Get it in the Bahamas.
Yes. Give me palm trees in the background.
Yeah, a little South Beach action. Florida and Tampa Bay on the beach.
I want a Pitbull concert in the background. Like this is a live golf tournament.
Mr. Worldwide at a World Classic, man. You're trying to get me to log in. I'll log in.
I don't get ratings.
You watch any of the Boise State beatdown last night? They didn't have a shot. Ashton Genty, man, that guy's the truth. If the Broncos can draft him somehow next year, if he like falls in the first round and he's available, I would take that guy in a heartbeat. He was barreling through the Penn State defense, and they still had no chance.
Yeah, I mean the Penn State running back Singleton is a good running back. I'm excited to watch Cam Skattebo, the Arizona State running back here, coming up at the top of the hour. Arizona State and Texas. I think he would look great in orange and blue. They are running back, tight end. The tight end Warren for Penn State has been, too. I mean, you look at tight end, look at running back. I'm excited to watch Skattebo. Fun name too. I think he could be a good. I don't know if the Broncos are almost going to be picking outside of Genty range. They're going to need to trade up if they want something like that, which sucks.
I think they are too. I still think Genty looked great last night because of. That's the one thing that you had to do against Boise State was like make sure he doesn't beat you. And while he did have a bunch of touches and his yards per carry were a little bit lower than obviously Broncos fans would have wanted it to be, like the amount of times that he was getting hit 3-4 yards in the backfield and found a way to make it positive. I still think that's a player that I would like to take. What I do worry about though is I still think that was the greatest chance for a big time upset in the quarterfinal. And when you bring up Skattebo, the Texas defense is a better defense than Penn State's. It just simply is. And I worry that we got a preview last night of what's about to happen 15 minutes from now with the Sun Devils and the Longhorns.
See, I was more optimistic about Arizona State than I was Boise State. Today, ASU, they just gave their head coach, Kenny Dillingham, a new 5-year deal. It could, this could end up being a 10-year deal.
I can't help but thinking Kenny Dillingham looks like who's the comedian? He's in the Sandler group.
Oh, Nick Swartzen?
Looks like Nick Swartzen, man.
Yeah, he kind of does. I haven't seen that until now that you mention it, yes. Yes, he does. He's also 34 years old, which is how old I am, and I'm like, damn, dude. I love doing Between the Pipes, but like shit. That dude lapped me.
You'd run away for that job?
No, he's a great coach.
How dare you?
And he's a great coach. And Sam Levitt is like that's the thing about Boise. Outside of Genty, like that team was kind of I think Sam Levitt's actually a sneaky decent quarterback. Scattaboo isn't get as much love as Genty, but he's very good. That Arizona State team, they fucked up Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah,
and then Iowa State went and beat Miami, albeit Cam Ward sat out the second half of the Pop-Tart Bowl. But I think Quinn Ewers, I'm not sold on. I think that Arch looming there makes things
I don't
weird.
think Texas is sold on Quinn Ewers.
I could see this being a close game today. I could. So I'm excited to watch it here coming up in about 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's your first game for the CFP today. The 3 p.m. game is between undefeated Oregon and Ohio State. This started as a 2.5-point favorite line for OSU. It has stayed there for the better part of 2 weeks. Dylan Gabriel, 28 touchdowns, 6 picks on the year. Ohio State that's the trendy pick right now. After seeing what they did in their first round matchup and bouncing back after that Michigan loss, and essentially just looking at that kind of a throwaway game against Michigan, knowing that Ohio State was going to get in, whether they played for a Big Ten title or not, they were going to get into this postseason, into this tournament. It kind of looks like they see that Michigan game and just go, that was a blip on the radar. We know who we are. Will Howard looked sensational when they put up, 42 points in that first round or 41 points. They're the sexy pick right now. They are the sexy pick, and they're favorites going against the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah, no, that to me is an absolute coin flip game. Could go either way. I get why Ohio State is favored because we saw this matchup in Big Ten play. Still so weird that Oregon's a Big Ten team. Like, that is so weird. Washington, a Big Ten team, is so weird. But we saw this game in Oregon versus Ohio State, and Oregon eked out a 32-31 win. And that was on their home turf. Now they're on a neutral site with Ohio State coming off of their best looking win maybe of the season. And they have weapons. Travion Henderson is a sneaky good running back. They got weapons at receiver. Will Howard's as solid of a college quarterback, but Dylan Gabriel's a very solid college quarterback. Dan Lanning versus Ryan Day. I mean, I almost lean Dan Lanning there, but Ryan Day seems to have a chip on his shoulder right now. That I can't call that game. That's going to be a great popcorn game, the Rose Bowl this afternoon. I'll say this. I like Notre Dame to beat Georgia tonight. I think Marcus Freeman gets that signature win at Notre Dame. I don't love Notre Dame by any means, but I think it sets up for that program's biggest win. And it's not even, when you think about it, that great of a win because Carson Beck is not playing. It's going to be Gunnar Stockton, who was fun in the SEC championship game, but I don't believe in him at all. I actually think Notre Dame is a tougher team than they've been in years past. I like their coach, who they just extended. I think it's Penn State, Notre Dame. With, believe it or not, that could be the world. Either Penn State or Notre Dame is playing in the national championship game if Notre Dame can get it done tonight.
I'm just waiting for a close game. That's all I'm waiting for, and I think that's the one that you're going to get. I think that is the closest matchup that you're going to get today is Notre Dame and Georgia, simply because of the backup quarterback situation. If you ask my co-host on the morning sprint in Mike Sanford, Mike loves him some Gunnar Stockton. He called him like if Stetson Bennett was a true quarterback. That's essentially what he said on the show yesterday. He was like, think of that guy. Remember how good Stetson Bennett was for this dominant Georgia defense? Well, take Stetson and make him a decent thrower of the football, and that's who Gunnar Stockton is. I went, all right, I don't know anything about the kid, but it's not easy to overcome losing your starter, a guy in Carson Beck who going into this season was looked at as maybe the number 1 quarterback prospect in the country by a lot of people, up until you saw Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders start to take off this year. And those are going to be the first 2 guys taken in the draft, or the first 2 quarterbacks taken in the draft. I'm just waiting for a close game, because now we're now at 5 games played and nothing's really happened. I've watched the games. I've been intrigued. They've been hard fought, but nothing's been close. I'm waiting for something to come down to the wire. I don't think we're going to get it at 11 a.m., but I do think the games that are coming at 3 p.m. today and at 6:35 p.m. or 6:40 p.m., whatever that final matchup is in the Notre Dame, what is it? Yeah, 6:45 on ESPN. I think Ohio State, Oregon, Notre Dame, and Georgia are going to be two nail biters tonight. I still think 10 minutes from now, man, I think Texas is going to walk all over Arizona State.
I'm optimistic. Granted, I mean, Texas is damn near 2 touchdown favorites. And a lot of times, I go into games thinking like, oh, you're going to give this team those points? This is free money. And then 30 minutes later, it's 21-0. And I'm like, shit. But no, I actually am optimistic that Arizona State can make this a close game. But this is going to be probably more of the norm with this 12-team playoff. There's a reason why, even when in the few years of 4 teams we got, the 1 would destroy the 4 in the first game.
Yeah, how many times did Ohio State do it in the first round where they just won by 35 points and you're, oh crap, all right,
yeah,
this again.
This sport, there's like 2 or 3 very good teams, then some okay teams, and then some teams. Look, next year, 2 years from now, at some point we will get a lower seed going on a run. It's just the law of averages say we will. We will get a Cinderella story at some point in the college football playoff, but those are probably going to be fewer and further between, just because that's not how that sport works.
Maybe it's just a seeding thing. Maybe you have to just
but Alabama lost to Michigan.
Right.
The Miami defense sucks. Everything outside of Cam Ward on that team sucks. The Buffs, I hate to say it, man. I thought the Buffs, if they were like a 12 or 11, would have been dangerous. I was dead wrong, apparently, because in a bowl game that they cared about and tried to win, they got crushed by BYU, who I thought was just an okay team. So, yeah, it really is right now. It's that Ohio State-Oregon matchup. Both those teams can win it all. Texas can win it all. That's about it. That's honestly about it.
All right, that's your first matchup coming up in about 8 minutes from right now. So we'll let you guys get out of here. Find yourselves a couple of beers, start to crack them. It's a beautiful New Year's Day. A little chilly here in the Mile High area, but have a couple of beers, watch some football today. Avs don't take the ice until Thursday evening. That's tomorrow at 7 p.m., 6:30 pregame show on Altitude Sports Radio 92.5. They'll finish up the 4-game homestand with Montreal on Saturday and hosting the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers on Monday, January 6th. I think there's some good ticket deals for that Florida game. I just got texted. They're $31 limited tickets for no fees right now.
That's a good deal.
It's a great deal to go see a really good hockey team in the Florida Panthers. So hop on to the Avs website and check that thing out. But for Spring, I'm Raj. Spring, Happy New Year. Great to see you. I'll see you tomorrow for Avs and Sabres. For all of you guys who signed on and got ready for your college football morning and recap the Avs game, Happy New Year to all of you guys. And we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.